In this lesson, we're going to get more familiar with the Canvas and Timeline windows and finish up our introduction to the Final Cut Pro workspace with the Toolbar and Audio Meters windows. First, let's take a look at the Canvas window. The Canvas window shows what is assembled in the editing timeline below. All of the navigation controls are the same as in the viewer window. Just above the video display area, you will see the Display Size button and the View Options button. You can use the Display Size button to zoom into a clip in detail, but this will not change the actual scale of the clip, only how you're currently viewing it in the Canvas window. You can use the View Options button to display title safe and action safe area overlays, or to use the wireframe overlay to move the center point of clips and adjust motion paths. The Timeline window displays your sequence and is the place where you'll be doing most of your editing work. The navigation buttons in the Canvas window will affect the playhead position in the timeline, and you can also drag the playhead at the top of the timeline or use the spacebar, arrow keys, or the J, K, and L keys. You can also use the Home key to move to the beginning of the sequence or the End key to move to the last frame of the sequence. The timeline is made up of video and audio tracks. Video tracks number up from the gray separator bar, and audio tracks numbered down below the bar. You can adjust the position of the bar if you need to see more video tracks or more audio tracks without having to scroll up and down in the timeline window. In the lower left of the timeline area, there is a button to toggle the clip overlays on or off. The clip overlay for the video track is a thin black line near the top of the track that controls opacity or transparency of a clip. The clip overlay for the audio tracks is a thin pink line in the center of the track that controls audio levels. Next to this, there are settings for adjusting the track height. Next to this is a timeline scale control that will zoom into the timeline so you can make more precise edits, or zoom out to get a wider perspective on the overall project. Zooming in and out of the timeline is something that you'll be doing frequently, and as I move the scale control, you can see the scroll bar just to the right get longer or shorter. Another method for zooming into the timeline is to click and drag one of the ears on the end of the scroll bar to zoom in or out. In the top left of the timeline window, there is a timecode field that tells you the position of the playhead. You can enter a specific time in this field to make the playhead jump to that position. In the top right of the timeline window, there are two small buttons. The linking selection button, which can be used to unlink audio and video clips that are normally locked in sync with one another, such as the video and audio on a clip you captured from a camcorder. Next to this is the button for toggling snapping on and off. When snapping is turned on, clips snap in place sort of magnetically to each other, so you're not left with blank frames in between clips. Snapping also makes clips snap to the playhead position if it's nearby. Sometimes snapping is really convenient, and sometimes it gets in the way, so you'll probably be toggling this on and off a lot. Since this snapping button is so small, it's probably a good idea to use the keyboard shortcut for toggling snapping instead. Just press the N key to toggle snapping on or off in the timeline. There are a few other keyboard shortcuts you should learn that will make your work in the timeline easier. Pressing the Shift and Z key at the same time will automatically resize the timeline window to display all the media currently in your sequence. This is really helpful if you want to quickly zoom out to see your whole sequence. If you're doing precision audio editing, it can be helpful to see the visual waveforms of your audio levels, and pressing Apple Option W will turn the audio waveforms on or off. Just to the right of the timeline, you'll find the Toolbar window. I'll go into some of these tools in more depth later, but for now the main cursor tools you should keep in mind are the Selection tool, which is what I will be calling the Arrow tool, because its keyboard shortcut is the A key. This is the tool you'll be using most of the time. Some other tools are the Track tool, whose keyboard shortcut is the T key, the Razor Blade tool, which I call the Blade tool because its keyboard shortcut is the B key, the Zoom tool, whose keyboard shortcut is the Z key, and the pen tool, which uses the P key as its shortcut. Next to the toolbar is the audio meters window. The audio meters will be inactive when capturing footage, but will be used to check levels of audio material in the timeline. A good rule of thumb for audio levels is that you should always have as much activity as you can in the upper part of the meters, but without going all the way to the top of the red. When the two small red dots at the top light up, that means your audio level is too high and the sound is getting distorted. Audio levels that are too low will force the person watching your finished piece to turn up their volume so high that they will also be hearing a good amount of audio hiss along with everything else. Lastly, before we move on to the next lesson, there are two more keyboard shortcuts that everyone should know. Apple S, which saves your project, and Apple Z, which is the undo command. As we move on through more lessons, I'll be introducing you to even more keyboard shortcuts, and the more you use them, the faster your editing work will be.